Jack Mercer was just a young man. He was 19, quiet, and didn't expect much from life. He worked as a supply technician on a small mining outpost in deep space. It wasn't a fancy job. It wasn't even important. Jack didn't carry a weapon, didn't wear medals, and didn't command anyone. He just kept track of tools, fuel, and food shipments. The year was 2143. Earth had barely survived the Third Contact War. Trust between humans and alien races had broken. Borders were closed. Trade was limited. And peace, what little was left of it, hung by a thread. Jack was stationed on Thetan 9, a forgotten mining outpost far from Earth. The place was cold, lonely, and always a little broken. Jack didn't mind. He liked routines. He enjoyed silence. He was used to being invisible. The other workers barely noticed him. That was fine. Then everything changed. One evening, after logging inventory in Storage Base 6, Jack took the long way back. The wind screamed through damaged vents, and shards of frozen dust blew like tiny knives across the ground. As he passed near the old scrapyard, something caught his eye. Movement. Small. Fast. Jack stopped. Behind a pile of discarded power cores, two small figures huddled together. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. But then he saw them clearly: blue skin, thin limbs, glowing silver eyes. Aliens. Two girls. Maybe 12 and 7 years old in human terms. They were terrified. The older one stood up and placed herself in front of the younger, arms spread like wings. She didn't speak, but her face said everything. She was ready to protect her sister, no matter what happened. Jack's heart pounded. He looked around. No patrols. No cameras. No one else in sight. He slowly reached into his bag and pulled out a ration bar. Then another. He didn't speak. He just bent down, placed the food gently on the ground, and backed away. The older girl hesitated. Then, carefully, she stepped forward. Picked up the bars. Sniffed them. And gave a single nod. It wasn't gratitude. Not yet. But it wasn't fear either. Jack left without a word. The next night, he returned. This time, he brought water and a heat blanket. And again the next night. And the next. 4 weeks. He learned their names. The older one was El Nari. Brave. Proud. Smart. She had the eyes of a warrior. The younger one was Syria. Quiet. Curious. Her smile came slowly, but when it did, it lit up her whole face. They were sisters from a border colony caught in the war. Their transport ship had crashed during an evacuation. Everyone thought they were dead. And no one came to look for them. Except Jack. He taught them simple words. Eat. Warm. Safe. They taught him their words, too. They shared stories. Jack drew stars on scraps of metal. Syria giggled. El Nari studied the constellations like she was memorizing them. Jack didn't know why he did it. He just did. He brought food. He listened. He showed up. Because they were kids. Because they were scared. Because no one else would. For the first time in his life, Jack felt like what he did mattered. Then one day, they were gone. No message. No sign. No goodbye. He searched. 4 days. Nothing. It felt like they had never existed. Just a dream. A story he made up to comfort himself. He never stopped thinking about them. He left Thetan 9. Got older. Worked new jobs. Carried on. People forgot about the war. Moved on. Jack never really did. When he told the story of the two alien sisters, most people smiled politely and changed the subject. Some thought he was lonely. Others thought he was lying. But Jack knew the truth. They were real. He had fed them. He had seen them smile. And deep down, he always wondered. Were they safe? Did they remember? Then, 22 years later, the sky opened over New San Diego. 3 alien ships descended. Sleek. Silent. Unknown technology. Shields up. No weapons fired. No demands made. One message was broadcast. We are looking for Jack Mercer. He is to be returned to us. Alive. Now. And Jack. He stood up from his maintenance desk, and whispered. They remembered. Jack Mercer stood quietly as security officers led him down the long corridor of Earth's unified command center. Every person they passed stopped what they were doing. Engineers, officers, even politicians whispered as he walked by. Everyone had heard the message. 3 alien ships had entered Earth's atmosphere. They didn't fire weapons. They didn't hack systems. They just sent one transmission. Return Jack Mercer to us. Alive. Now. Jack hadn't heard those names in 22 years. He had no idea what El Nari or Syria looked like now. He didn't know where they'd gone, what they had become, or how they had found him after all this time. But they had. And the whole world was watching. In the central briefing chamber, the council prepared to interrogate him. Giant screens displayed live feeds of the alien ships hovering silently over New San Diego. They pulsed with quiet power. No markings. No threats. Just, presence. Then a screen flickered. A figure appeared. She was tall. Elegant. Her skin shimmered faintly, and her armor glowed like woven starlight. Her face had changed, but Jack knew those eyes bright silver, sharp as a blade, and full of quiet pain. Jack Mercer, she said. Do you remember us? He couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Then, a second figure stepped forward beside her. Smaller. Softer. Gentle. Her voice cracked. Jack, it's us. El Nari. Syria. You fed us. You hid us. You saved us. And we never forgot. The room went still. It wasn't an invasion. It was a homecoming. El Nari and Syria weren't children anymore. After escaping Thetan 9, they'd been rescued by explorers from a distant system. Raised by scholars. Trained as diplomats. They'd grown into leaders of a powerful interstellar alliance built on peace, not conquest. And for 22 years, they had searched for Jack. We made a promise, El Nari said. If we lived, we would return. And give our future to the one who gave us our past. The Earth Council didn't buy it. The room filled with sharp voices. Is this manipulation? Do they want political influence? Are we being tested? Then Syria spoke softly, but clearly. We didn't come for Earth. We came for him. And then she said the words that broke every rule. We wish to marry Jack Mercer. A stunned silence. Jack's eyes widened. He tried to breathe. Tried to process. Him. A maintenance worker? Just a guy who once shared food with 2 starving strangers. It made no sense. And yet, it made perfect sense. He remembered their faces in the cold. The fear. The hunger. And how they'd slowly opened up not because he asked for anything, but because he saw them as people. The council panicked. Absolutely not, some said. We can't allow this. So Jack made a request. Let me speak to them. In person. Alone. They agreed. A neutral meeting was set on a moon station orbiting Jupiter. No media. No weapons. No audience. Jack waited. The ship docked. And when El Nari stepped through the hatch, her face softened. She wasn't a queen. She was the same girl who once sat beside a fire made of scrap metal, sharing water from a cracked thermos. Syria followed, tears in her eyes. No one spoke at first. Then El-Nari walked up to him. "You were the first to see us," she said. "Not as aliens. Not as threats. But as lives worth saving." Syria added. "You gave us warmth when we had nothing. We've carried that warmth ever since." Jack didn't know what to say. So he laughed. "I'm just a guy who worked in storage." El-Nari smiled. "No, Jack. You were our first home." Months passed. The story went public. Some laughed. Some judged. Others cried. But most understood. Because Jack's story wasn't just about aliens. Or love. It was about kindness. About the moment you choose to care, even when no one's watching. About how a food bar, a blanket, and a smile can change the course of entire galaxies. The wedding was held under the twin moons of Lyra 7. No cameras. No generals. No press releases. Just stars. 3 people. 3 hearts. One shared vow. We choose each other. In memory. In hope. In peace. Jack didn't become rich. Or powerful. But he became something far more important. A bridge between worlds. After the ceremony, Jack Mercer's life changed, but not in the way people expected. He didn't become a senator. He didn't sit at grand tables with politicians or lead diplomatic fleets. He didn't wear a uniform or carry a title. He never wanted that. Instead, he chose something simpler. Something real. He moved to Lyra 7 with El-Nari and Syria. The planet was quiet. Peaceful. The skies were green during the day and glowed purple at dusk. Crystals grew on tree branches. The grass sang faintly when the wind passed through it. They built a modest home on a hill overlooking a crystal blue lake. No palace. No servants. No guards. Just the 3 of them. Jack planted a garden. A real one with vegetables, flowers, and strange glowing vines he could barely pronounce. Every morning, he'd wake early and walk the fields barefoot, feeling the soft ground under his feet. The air always smelled clean. The light always felt warm. He liked it that way. Inside their home, they kept things simple: a kitchen with hand-carved cups, a telescope facing the stars, and a wall filled with drawing stars, stories, and small memories of Earth and Thetan 9. Each night, the 3 of them would share tea at the same small table. No royal dinners. Just warm mugs and old jokes. Sometimes Jack would fix broken generators for nearby villages. Other times, he'd draw stars on the ground for local children and teach them the names he had made up long ago. He never asked for money. Never sought credit. He didn't need to. He had already been given something far more valuable: a home, and love that spanned galaxies. El-Nari taught at a nearby academy. She was famous across systems for her strength, but on Lyra 7 she taught something different: how to protect without violence, how to fight with honor, and when not to fight at all. Syria worked at the Refugee Integration Office. She helped those who had been displaced by war find new lives, new names, new peace. They didn't lead armies. They healed wounds. Together, they became symbols. Not of war, but of healing. Still, once a year, Jack would walk alone to the northern edge of the lake on the anniversary of that night on Thetan 9. He never forgot what he saw. 2 children. Freezing. Shaking. Terrified. Not aliens. Just lost girls. Forgotten by the universe. But not by him. One night, during a heavy rainstorm, they sat together by the fire inside their home. Jack stirred his tea, the smell of earth cinnamon filling the air. Soft music from a dusty old player drifted through the room. El-Nari asked, Do you ever miss your old life? Jack smiled. Sometimes. The stars were lonelier back then. But I don't regret leaving. Syria leaned into him. I'm glad you stayed. Jack looked at the two of them, the fire reflecting in his eyes. No, he said. I didn't stay. You came back. Over time, word of Jack's story traveled far beyond Lyra 7. People from dozens of systems wrote him letters. Some came to visit young students, travelers, even peacekeepers. Not to meet a hero, but to feel what kindness could become. On many worlds, he became a quiet legend. In schools, children learned about the man who fed the forgotten. Artists painted that moment, a young man holding out 2 food bars under a broken sky. One day, a small child from a mining colony visited the hilltop home. She walked shyly up to Jack as he planted new roots in the soil. Is it true, she asked. You gave food to alien girls when no one else would? Jack wiped his hands on a cloth and knelt down. Yes, he said. They were hungry. I had food. So I shared. The girl tilted her head. But didn't you know they were important? Jack chuckled. No, I just knew they were alone. On his 60th birthday, Elnari and Syria built something special in the garden, a statue made of stone and light. It showed 3 figures sitting together, Jack in the middle, 2 small girls curled up beside him, sharing a blanket. Below it, just one line was carved. The first warmth we ever knew. Jack stood before it, quiet for a long time. Then he whispered, thank you for remembering. Elnari took his hand. We never forgot, she said. That night, under a sky full of comets, Jack stood by the telescope. He didn't look at any star in particular. He just smiled. Because now he knew the truth. The universe doesn't change through war or power. It changes through choices. Small ones. The choice to stop. To care. To feed someone. To stay. To remember. He hadn't saved the galaxy. But he had saved 2 lives. And they, in return, had saved his. Years passed. Jack grew older. His hair turned gray. His back curved slightly with age. His hands, once steady from years of work, now trembled just a little. But one thing never changed: his eyes still held that quiet warmth. That spark of someone who had seen pain and responded with kindness. Life on Lyra 7 continued to thrive. The planet remained a place of peace, connection, and renewal. Its skies still shimmered with soft colors at night. Its people still spoke gently and lived simply. Elnari and Syria remained active in their roles. Though respected across star systems, they never saw themselves as above others. They had grown into symbols of strength and diplomacy, but in their home, they were simply partners. They gardened with Jack, told stories with local children, and invited neighbors over for long, quiet meals. People came from distant systems not to negotiate, but to observe. Not to gain influence, but to witness something rare: what it looked like when peace was earned, not forced. When connection came from humility, not power. And always, at the center of it all, was Jack. Occasionally, Jack would travel to other planets to speak. He didn't like spotlights, but he agreed to share his story if it meant inspiring others. He never brought speeches. He never made himself the hero. He simply said this. I saw 2 girls in the cold. They were scared. I had food. So I gave it to them. That's all. That's everything. Students often expected more. They waited for him to talk about fate or destiny. But Jack didn't believe in those things. He believed in moments. In choices. In doing what you can, when it matters most. At one embassy event, a young ambassador raised his hand. Do you truly believe that one small act changed everything? Jack's answer was quiet, but firm. It changed everything for them. And that was enough. You never know what someone will become because you chose to help. That line would later be printed in textbooks across dozens of worlds. Soon, statues of Jack began to appear. Not on Earth, but on outer colony worlds, refugee planets, and newly allied star bases. Places that understood what it meant to be forgotten, and then remembered. Every statue showed the same image. A man kneeling in the cold, holding out food to two small alien girls. At the base of each statue were handwritten messages left by visitors. Thank you for seeing them. You remind us to choose kindness. I want to be like Jack. On his 85th birthday, Jack sat wrapped in a warm blanket by the edge of the lake. The sky above him turned shades of violet and gold. 2 moons hung low over the water, casting long shadows. Elnari was beside him, her hand gently resting on his. Syria sat on the ground with her head against his leg. You cold, old man? Elnari asked with a grin. Jack chuckled. Only my feet. The rest of me feels pretty perfect. Syria looked up. Want to go inside? He shook his head. No, I want to sit here. Just a little longer. The stars came out. The wind whispered through the tall grass. And in that silence, Jack asked softly. Do you think anyone else helped someone, because of what I did? Neither of them answered. They just leaned in closer. And stayed with him. 2 weeks later, Jack passed away in his sleep. No pain. No fear. Just peace. His passing wasn't marked by military salutes or political declarations. There were no sirens or fireworks. Just silence. And the quiet mourning of a galaxy that had learned something gentle and powerful from one man's life. He was buried under the tree he planted himself. Its roots ran deep. Its leaves glowed in moonlight. Above his resting place, a plaque was placed. It read, Here lies Jack Mercer. He didn't save the galaxy. He saved someone. And that changed everything. After his death, Elnari and Syria created a school not for warriors, but for listeners and builders and healers. They called it the Quiet School. No ranks. No exams. No uniforms. Just people from every background coming together to learn how to lead with empathy. To care without agenda. To act when it would be easier to turn away. Every term, the first lesson was always Jack's story. Told simply. Told truthfully. A man saw suffering. And he stopped to help. That's it. That's enough. Many years later, a small child asked her teacher. Was Jack Mercer a real person? Or just a story? The teacher smiled. Oh, he was real. Very real. The girl looked puzzled. Then why do people talk about him like he was magic? The teacher walked over to the window and looked at the lake, where the wind stirred the surface gently. Because he made one small choice. And kept making it. And because of that, others did too. The girl whispered, Do you think I could do something like that? The teacher knelt down. You already can. Generations passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one could have imagined. New species emerged from distant corners of the stars. Old conflicts faded. Colonies that once struggled now thrived. Interstellar travel became faster. Safer. Worlds that were once unreachable became weekend destinations for students and explorers. And through all that change, one story remained. The story of Jack Mercer. Jack's name was not attached to military victories or inventions. He never led a fleet or signed treaties. But he was remembered. Everywhere. He became more than a man. He became a symbol not of power, conquest, or status but of something quieter. Something older. Something deeper. Kindness. The simple, sacred act of choosing to help, when no one else does. Every year, On the anniversary of the night Jack first gave food to the two alien girls, Lyra 7 stopped. Shops closed. Schools paused. Transportation slowed. It wasn't a holiday. It was a tradition. They called it the Day of the Gesture. There were no fireworks. No parades. No speeches by officials. Instead, families and friends gathered together on hills, beside lakes, under trees. They shared small meals. They sat in silence. And they told stories. Stories of people who had once helped them. Stories of how a single act, holding a hand, sharing food, offering shelter, changed their lives. Children were encouraged to speak. Elders were encouraged to listen. And always, every single year, they began with Jack's story. In the center of Lyra 7 stood a structure. But it wasn't a statue, or a museum, or a shrine. It was a garden. Carefully kept. Gently watered. Alive with color. It was named, the Garden of First Warmth. There, trees from dozens of planets had been planted by visitors over the centuries. The leaves shimmered in different colors under the light of Lyra's twin moons. Flat stones, placed around the garden's edge, were engraved with stories in hundreds of languages. Each one told a different version of the same thing. Someone helped me, and I never forgot. In the middle stood a sculpture not of Jack alone, but of the moment that started it all. Jack Mercer, young, dressed in a simple supply uniform, kneeling. Two alien girls, Elnari and Syria, reaching toward him with cautious hands. In the background, a sky full of stars. It didn't focus on what they became. It honored who they were. In the moment that mattered. Long after Elnari and Syria passed on, the garden remained. So did the story. It was passed down, generation by generation. Parents whispered it to children during bedtime. Teachers opened each school year with it. Healers recited it before long journeys. Space travelers carried it to the edges of mapped space, telling strangers they met along the way. It became part of galactic culture. Not law. Not command. Just a story. But one that shaped lives. 1,000 years after Jack's death, on a mining moon far from Lyra 7, a young boy named Kevin dropped his only blanket into a muddy puddle. He wrapped it around a stray creature shivering in the shadows of a power plant. His friend stared in shock. "Why'd you do that? It's ruined now. That thing's not even yours." Kevin just smiled. "Because he did it first." "Who?" "Jack Mercer." His friend blinked. "You mean that old story?" "It's not just a story," Kevin said. "It's how we're supposed to live." And without another word, he walked home, wet and cold, but proud. Many thought the tale was just a legend. An old myth to teach morals. A bedtime story for dreamers. But no matter how many centuries passed, the meaning stayed the same. That even the smallest gesture, a shared meal, a warm blanket, a gentle word, can ripple through generations. That one act of compassion can echo across light years. In the outer sectors, where new colonies began, there were murals. They didn't show wars. They showed a human offering food to someone different. Different skin. Different culture. Different species. And always, the human saw them as equal. Somewhere, in deep space, explorers say there's a lonely beacon still transmitting. Every year, on the day of the gesture, it sends out a single signal. They remembered. No one knows how long it's been running. No one knows who kept it alive. But travelers passing near it say they always feel the same thing when they hear the pulse. Hope. Because Jack Mercer wasn't special. He didn't have powers. He didn't lead armies. He just cared. And in doing so, he became something the galaxy will never forget. Proof that kindness, real, simple kindness, can change everything. The end.